And we're here. Welcome everybody at our second webinar, part of our webinar series called Beyond the Bank, Overcoming Cross-Border Payment Challenges for International NGOs. My name is Gilberto Morishaw. I'm part of the Bread Cooperative team. And yeah, today we'll be speaking about some of the challenges that NGOs and cooperatives are actually um, they have when it comes to moving money abroad. As we all know, it's banks are crazy, and these institutions, they are created often for specific reasons, for working on traditional systems. And when we're doing work that crosses borders and work that is unconventional or maybe even transformative, they can be a big challenge to overcome these things. As Bread Cooperative, we are a digital community working on building technological infrastructure for solidarity economy. Um, we're a network of post-capitalist projects involved in crypto. We share labor power, resources, decision making, and mentorship in a world where only profit maximizing organizations get funded and support. It's up to us to build alternative structures for post capitalism. That's why we're here. That's what we do. That's what we care about. So we've been working with a lot of these different organizations in the last few years, building these digital tools and resources for social impact, for global good, for this solidarity economy that we hopefully all believe in the times of collapse. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of good things that we can build together. So, as we know, the history of collective action, community resilience, and social action um, is kind of what has made us move forward as a society. And we cannot give up on that in the times of this digital age. We have to really double down on a future founded on solidarity and justice. And we can only do that by leveraging technological tools uh, for this common purpose, for this common good, and not just languishing in, yeah, the status quo, in technological systems that are degenerative and destructive. We're all in this together. We build this future together. That's why we're Bread Cooperative. We're founded on these principles of mutual aid, transparent governance, tool power, and economic democracy. Um, because and you can join us in Discord actually if you have Discord. Some of you are already part of the Discord family. So last time we spoke a bit about the major challenges for NGOs working across borders, major funding cuts, weaponization, deplatforming, lack of transparency. Um, it's very hard to overcome these challenges, and therefore we built something that can help do that. And we want to help organizations kind of leverage Web3 tools to overcome these problems, especially things like deplatforming, or activist groups being targeted and being canceled. There's a long history of these things, and it's even more relevant now, today. So, what are the challenges of the traditional payment systems for NGOs? From a lot of reports, I think there's a global report from 2022 from InPay, where they analyzed a lot of the issues that NGOs face with regard to normal traditional payment systems. And I had the opportunity to be at COP and to speak with a lot of NGOs that are working on these topics too, and they kind of reiterated and reconfirmed just the biggest problems that we're seeing across the board: lack of coverage. Think about uh, the fact that when every transaction, if you want to transact something from, let's say, the US or Europe to another country, it has to go through a network of banks, because the banking system is like, it's like, messenger birds. You have to send one bird to the other bird, and then you got to send like a hidden signal or a flame that shines high in the sky so that people can hear it and then they can start the drums. It's not very efficient at all. It's very outdated. It's very old fashioned, and it requires middlemen to be able to make things happen. And if you to not have that, if there's no middlemen, there's no banking infrastructure in the country that you want to send the money to, then you're straight out of luck, or it will go through a very complex loop. Lack of transparency, hidden rules, and lost transactions. So, because the banking system is so outdated, there is no way of seeing how far a transaction actually goes, and when it gets there, it's all in the mystery. It's like a black box where you put things into, and then you hope and pray that you will receive the money. I mean, I've had experiences like that where I was hoping and praying for like almost a month, and then suddenly the people said, "Oh, the transaction just disappeared." And I was like, "But where is it? We don't know. I don't know either." So you can imagine, if you're working on something that is impactful and pivotal and timely, that that's just not going to work. Expensive, extra fees for beneficiaries. I remember a lot of NGOs struggle with the fact that they have to put in a lot of extra money on top of the money that they are sending in order to pay for all of the extra fees, especially if there's more correspondent banks that all take a cut. And it's slow and expensive because the wire transfers can be delayed for many reasons. A few of them could be just because nobody was at the office, or because it was a weekend, or it was a holiday. And if you're in a country that has a lot of holiday, I know you, Josh, you've lived in Belgium, which has a lot of holidays. So then the banks are closed every Tuesday or something like that. And you're straight out of luck, and they can be easily blocked and delayed for things like compliance, or maybe they don't understand your organization, or your organization has a different name, or you're sending the money to someone that has a bad name, like a name where they're like, no, we don't like this person, this name sounds exotic. So then they delay your transaction. That actually happens a lot in the Netherlands for people with like a immigrant background, where their banks sometimes blockade their accounts because they seem suspicious. And there's also a lot of difficulty providing support for edge cases. So if you're in a place that's far away, if you're in a humanitarian area, or a crisis, how do you send money to people um, when things are not working? When there is a drama. Luckily, um, organizations have started becoming much more involved in that. I think UNICEF has a crypto fund, and they funded 4.3 Bitcoin uh, of projects uh, for humanitarian aid. I think one of the projects that I used to work with also got some of the funding. Um, when we look at the devastation that just happened in Jamaica, we're seeing people making use of um, crypto funds to um, send money to these places so that they can get in, so they can receive, yeah, the funding that is needed in a timely way. And we're also seeing the World Food Program. I think this was a project that happened in, um, I think this was there was one in Afghanistan, and there was one in Jordan, where they leveraged almost 15 million they sent through crypto and through digital funding in order to make sure people had timely access to money through digital wallets. So these are things that are being done, and there's a lot of money that is now being sent, but traditional systems are still um, not aware of this, especially traditional NGOs. They are still stuck in a world of, oh, we got to do it by the book. But that's why we're here. We're going beyond the bank. So, why blockchain can help? Obviously, there's distributed ledgers and shared databases. Um, you govern the commons collectively. Maybe Josh can also pitch in for some stuff like that. Josh is our founder of Bread Cooperative, and he's a good yapper, just like me.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think the kind of way that I view blockchains in this type of setting where you need to send money across borders, I mean, you can think of it as um, a kind of resilient technological solution um, to payments in various ways, with a lot of caveats, of course, that uses cryptography in order to verify and transactions and how they're made. So whereas in the banking system, where you have know your customer regulation, and banks will hold information about their clients that they verify as to verify transactions through. Blockchains don't have that built in necessarily, so it offers for more flexibility in being able to send payments. So at the same time, guaranteeing a level of resilience that is kind of like one of a kind as far as technological resilience, in the sense that a bad actor, whether it be a state or a company or whatever else, would find it very difficult to kind of to sabotage, I guess, payments in certain ways. So yeah, it's kind of resilience to political weaponization and financial blockade. So this has been shown and proven in the case of WikiLeaks in 2010, whenever their bank accounts were blocked by PayPal and other companies, where they received a bunch of donations, but they couldn't use it. And so they gave an option for people to donate through Bitcoin, which allowed people to circumvent that financial blockade. And so I think what that kind of showed was that, like, using cryptocurrency that's kind of like its use case. It's like to send money in ways that get around these types of issues, which then allowed WikiLeaks to survive for much longer. They made also incidentally a lot of money off of it, and so was able to use those funds for the legal protection of Julian Assange and all the other work that they're doing. So I think in the context of like cross-border payments, it's generally a less intense sort of situation as WikiLeaks, but it shows I think the relation is fairly obvious, in that you can send money from one person to another using just cryptography, math, code, as a way to facilitate it without needing to go through intermediaries like banks. So yeah, so I think this is proven. I've been doing a lot of work with sending crypto to Gaza, for example, where people are experiencing some pretty bad situations there, and where the banking system does not work for everyone, obviously. And so to receive money, the preferred way for a lot of people there is through cryptocurrency, because that's it's immediate, and it doesn't go through these types of checks that banks will do as the transaction is going through its journey. The journey is much shorter. It's from one account to another one, and it happens quite quickly. And then those in Gaza are able to cash out that cryptocurrency through over-the-counter desks that exist there. So yeah, I think these are some of the things that are kind of, at least when I'm thinking about cross-border payments, these are things that come to mind for me. What chains and tokens am I using to send funds to Gaza? It varies a little bit. In the beginning, it was largely USDT on Tron, because that was the most popular one, and that's the one that everybody kind of knows in the Middle East, and that they rely on it. They have a huge market share there. But recently, now they've been able to receive USDC on Ethereum, or just Ethereum-based tokens, which has made things a lot easier. But that's because before they only knew about Tether on Tron, and now they kind of, the people who are on the ground have been able to learn a bit more about what is and what isn't possible. So yeah, they usually have Binance, a Binance wallet or something like that. How does the cash out / off ramp process work on the ground there? It's like any over-the-counter desk. If you've been to one before, there's a ton of them in places like Turkey and Istanbul. If you go there's a lot. There's some that they exist in Spain. They exist in a few different places. But you just go. They ask for, they ask you what you're going to send, what you want. You make a deal. You send them the cryptocurrency, they tell you the address, and then they give you cash there on the spot once they confirm the transaction.
Yeah, so they work a lot with like intermediaries, and which is which is also, of course, the reality of humanitarian areas, right? Because often traditional infrastructure is not there anymore. So then you have to find trusted ways of sending money. And, um, people don't have access to normal bank accounts anymore. So how do you do that? You work with these people that are there. I mean, and that's also kind of a lot of the questions that we receive. Um, what kind of
Yeah.
ID is needed for those acts? Oh, that's a good question, actually.
I think well, the first question, does the OTC desk take a fee? Yes, they always take a fee. The percentage varies. It just depends on the situation and how bad it is. The worse it gets, the higher the fee, basically. So the fee has been up to 50%, but this is not specific to OTC desks. This is a fee that's taken no matter how you send money.
Yeah.
Any way that you take money, it's the same fee in Gaza. The only way to get around it is if you're lucky enough on the ground to have a specific card that the Bank of Palestine gave out to people well before, and they still have and they don't have their Bank of Palestine accounts blocked. So, for example, the person that I'm working with now, he used to have a Bank of Palestine account, but they closed it. So he no longer has access to that account, and he doesn't have the card. So cryptocurrency is kind of like the main way for him to interact. As far as ID, I'm not sure, but I don't think ID is really needed. I never needed an ID when I've used an over-the-counter desk. At least in places like Istanbul where I've done it before, but in Europe, you would need an ID. Yeah, 50% was like the maximum.
Yeah.
Maybe 40%. If it was at 50%, it was very brief. 40%, it was for a while. Yeah, it can be quite high. But this
And I
was
mean,
in like the points where it was like the worst. Because what's happening right now basically is that cash is getting destroyed. Like no new cash is getting into Gaza. So the existing cash is disappearing from the bombing or getting into really bad condition. So there's actually just like cash is very hard to find is the issue.
any other questions, actually? Okay. I mean, maybe just to add on to this is not the reality for every humanitarian area. This is not the reality for every humanitarian crisis. Um, the more I think the situation in Gaza is unique because there was also a blockade, and thereby making it an artificially enclosed area where it was almost impossible for humanitarian aid and investment to even come in. So Gaza is like an edge case that is
Extreme.
the most extreme version, and even in the most extreme circumstances, crypto can provide like some avenues of moving forward. So if it can work in Gaza, then it's much more likely to work in other areas that need it, particularly in crises that are spontaneous, like hurricanes or earthquakes, where people might not have access to like a lot of these over-the-counter things, but um, they do have access to some aspect of digital wallets, and where NGOs are much more easily able to enter into the country. So what we do next to this is we kind of create like solidarity tools, um, and we call them solidarity primitives as a rethinking of what is commonly referred to as financial primitives. But it's called solidarity tools now. And what we want to do is we want to create the infrastructure that is needed to build solidarity within communities through the usage of funding and finances. One of the things that we have is a solidarity fund that this distributes funding to all of our member cooperative organizations that are doing impact work on the ground. Another thing that we're developing is Stacks, which is a circular savings initiative where people can save money together in communities. Um, and the other project is Safety Net, which is like an insurance mechanism um, for uh, decentralized communities on the ground. So this is kind of how the Solidarity Fund works, where we make use of XDAI we stake XDAI in a liquidity pool, um, and the yield from this liquidity pool is then distributed to the members through a token that we call bread. Bread is the token of Bread Cooperative. It is a digital stablecoin, so it doesn't really fluctuate a lot in value. And when you hold bread, you are also you stake XDAI to receive bread. So just by holding bread, you are able to generate yield for these community projects, thereby kind of reinventing the way that an endowment works, reinventing the way that fundraising works. So instead of like just giving the money all away, we're making the money regenerate funding for others. These are our current member organizations. There's Region Coordination, Symbiota, Crypto Commons Association, Citizen Wallet, Gardens, and of course, Bread Cooperative themselves. We're actually using the invitation link for this event was from Dandelion, which is a project of Symbiota. So that's kind of cool. You've already interacted with Bread Cooperative. We love that. Hashtag Bread. And this is just an example of some of the distributions that we've been given. This was I think one of maybe the last one or the one before that, the last distribution we
It's probably
provided.
at least 3 months ago, probably.
So yeah, it's that. And this is kind of showcases there is a full transparency on how much yield is given to every participant, and thereby making sure that what we're doing is democratic, what we're doing is transparent. Financial tools today, solidarity forever. That's our slogan. That's our quote. Woo, go bread.
Cool.
Josh?
Thanks, Gilberto. So now I want to get into some of the basics of how sending cryptocurrency works and how cross-border payments through cryptocurrency would work. For people who have used cryptocurrency before, this might be a little bit kind of like on the 101 side, but maybe it'll be a nice refresher for some of y'all. So in order to begin to use any sort of cryptocurrency, you need what's called a wallet. You need your own account to where you can interact with cryptocurrency. And so there are plenty different types of wallets. What's kind of important to understand about them is that they use things called private keys. So that I'll explain a bit of what that looks like, but you can understand that as using a bunch of fancy math, also called cryptography, as a way to link your identity with this private key, which is the equivalent of like a password. There are lots of different types of wallets if you take a high level approach. There are two main types, right? There are cold wallets and there are hot wallets. Cold wallets are wallets that are never connected to the internet. And then hot wallets are ones where they are connected to the internet in some way, but they, of course, will have these security measures in place so that money doesn't just disappear or whatever from it. And so kind of the main way or the usual way that I recommend people to begin using it is to use what's called a web wallet. So down the number 3 under hot wallet. This is basically a browser extension for the most part that you download in order to interact with applications that are using some sort of crypto element in them. There are also wallets you can have on your phone. There are wallets you can have just downloaded directly into your desktop. And as far as the cold wallets, you can either buy a piece of hardware where which I have actually mine right here. So it's called the ledger, for example, where the private key is stored inside of this device and therefore doesn't connect to the internet directly. And then you can also have a paper wallet where you write down your private key on a piece of paper. So usually if you want to save a bunch of money and you don't want it to move, you put it in a cold wallet. If you want to use that money, you put it in a hot wallet. But starting with a web wallet is the kind of easiest, most straightforward way to go. And I recommend Rabby as the plugin is the one that I recommend the most. I think it's the easiest to work with. Go to the next slide.
Also, it's cute because it's a rabbit. Woo!
As well. So just a little bit on private keys versus public keys. Private keys are the way that you access a public key, right? You can think of it whenever you go into your bank account, you have your username and password, and then you have, at least if you're in Europe, and I'm sure most other countries, except maybe the US, you have your IBAN. So if you want to send money to someone's IBAN, they just give you their IBAN, right? It's just a public series of a couple letters and numbers. And by knowing your IBAN, there's no way for me to know your username and password to enter your bank account, right? There's no connection there. It's similar to a private and public key, where someone knowing your public key, which is like your IBAN, which is what people share around in order to receive money, there's no way for me to know your private key. And that's because they use a bunch of fancy math, detailed a little bit in this image, in order to have a unidirectional association from private key to public key, but you cannot relate the public key to the private key back. It only goes in one direction. So if you have the private key, you can prove that you own a specific public key, and therefore you have the ability to access the funds or cryptocurrency that is within that public key. Did that make sense to people? Just a quick check, sanity check. Cool. Then I think we can go to the next slide. So to explain kind of like the full flow of how a transaction works for people, you can take the example of in this image, Mr. Blue, he has some cryptocurrency in his wallet. He uses his private key to open it up and then send cryptocurrency to Mrs. Green. Mrs. Green then has some cryptocurrency. Mrs. Green then sends half of that cryptocurrency to Mr. Black by using her private key and sending it to the public key of Mr. Black, and then Mr. Black has half a cryptocurrency. All of these transactions are being sent to the transaction pool, and all those transactions are being then processed, you can think, by either a miner or a staker. So the kind of generalized term, you can think of it as a validator. They validate transactions. So they bundle all of them up into a single block of transactions. It all uses the same data structure and standard. And then if they win either depending if it's proof of work or proof of stake, if they're chosen to be a validator, then they get the right to append this whole block of transactions, and they get rewarded for doing so. And that block of transactions is connected to the previous block, which is connected to the previous block. So there's this chronological order kept in place as far as each block of transactions that are added. That's why they call it a blockchain. Yeah, that was my best way to explain it at a high level without going into too many details. But if you have any questions, feel free. If you need something kind of clarified.
I loved it. It's great.
Great. Then yeah, maybe we can go to the next slide is the demo. So I can show my screen. So if I At great risk, I'm going to share my entire screen. So what I have, so you can see in my browser extension, you have the Rabby wallet here. And here you can see my wallet and account, and I have several different actions that I can take within it.
I'm not sure we can see your wallet.
Oh, how about now?
We're seeing the infinity screen.
Still now?
Yes.
Oh, that's weird.
Technical difficulties.
How about here? Maybe now.
Yes.
Cool. So you can see here that this is my wallet, where I've just like opened up full screen. If for whatever reason it's not showing the browser extension, but in the browser extension there is like a way to just click on full screen. So I'm able to show it to you here, where you have different options of what you can do. Here you can see right now this wallet, I just named it Safe Demo. This is what I used last time as well as my wallet. And you can see this series 0x and then a bunch of numbers. This 0x and a bunch of numbers is my public key. So this is like the equivalent of my IBAN that I can share with anyone that I want to send money to. So let's say I want to send some money to another account. So I'll just use one of my other accounts just to keep it simple. I have this other demo wallet called Safe Demo 2. So I'm going to, if I click this kind of two squares on top of each other, this is just a copy button, the copy to clipboard. It's always recommended to do copy to clipboard because you don't want to manually put in all of the numbers of your public address because it's just way too easy to make a mistake. So I've copied the address and I want to send. I have some cryptocurrency here, just one XDAI, so it's just $1. I'm going to send it. I just need to pick the token. There we go. And then I will enter the address. So I will I'll copy and paste that address. It's already recognized because it's one of the accounts that I hold inside of my wallet. And I'll confirm it. And then I will send, let's send 50 cents. It'll send 0.5 XDAI. It'll tell me how much is the gas fee. So this is just the transaction fee that I'll have to pay. And because I'm using Gnosis chain, which is also the chain that we use for Bread Cooperative, the fee is super, super low. So you can see here, it's less than a tenth of a penny. So that's super cheap. This is a level of fee that you'll never get with any bank at how cheap it is. But and it doesn't, the fee does not change based on the amounts that you send either. So I could send, 5 million XDAI and it'll still be the same price to send it. So I've set it up. I'll press send. I'll confirm it, which is basically what's going on in the background is it's by confirming it, I'm verifying my private key, proving that I have ownership of this public key so that I can make this transaction. And I got the confirmation that it was successful. So then I'll see in my account that I've lost 50%, but that's because I sent half of it to the other account, to Safe Demo 2. And so if I go to Safe Demo 2, I should see it. Yes, it is here. For some reason, this is not updating. If I press refresh, there you go. And now I have 50 cents in this other account. So in a situation where you're doing cross-border payments, right, the flow is exactly the same. The only thing that you'll need from the other person is their crypto address to send to. If you have that address, then it's all the same. It doesn't make a difference from which country to which country you're sending it to. The only thing that matters is that it sticks with this standard and the other person has access to this account. So whenever I'm sending funds to those in Gaza, all I do is ask them for the address. And when I send the money, it appears basically immediately. So that's what's really nice about being able to use this type of thing. Whereas for the past several months, there have been a lot of complaints, or I mean years now actually, of people trying to send money to those in Gaza. The big complaint has been the speed of the transaction and the speed of arrival of the money in a situation where things are pretty dire and quite intense. And so being able to receive those funds in the immediate is a desirable trait, and to receive it in a way that provides this level of guarantee is also something that people in these types of situations have desired out of something like this. Yeah, so there's probably a lot more I could talk about here. This is kind of like the basics of sending a single transaction. There are solutions out there as well to send multiple transactions at once. I'm not sure, I don't remember if there's a way to do it. I think within this UI, I don't remember if it's possible, or I don't remember how to do it. If it is, it might not be, but there are solutions out there to where if you're doing like a large disbursement of aid to multiple people, you can also send a lot of money, or a lot of transactions to multiple people all at once. And yeah, maybe one other thing to talk about as well is the process of actually making a wallet. Here you can make as many accounts as you want in a particular wallet. So I have a bunch of them. And if I want to make another one, all I have to do is click add address. And then there are many different ways you can derive a private key. Either you can import something that you already own. So if you have a private key already available to you, you could import it. So you can just copy and paste the key in here. Or inside the wallet, it can create a new account for you. And the way that an account is usually created or done is by creating a seed phrase, which is a randomized set of words, usually I think 12 words. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, you're gonna see it. But when I click that, it'll go through the process of making a random set of words that will then produce a private key to a completely fresh wallet. So completely unused before. The way that this works is very complex math, once again, that probably I wouldn't be able to explain succinctly. But the main thing to understand is that the math, the possibility of having a collision to where two people generate the same wallet is extremely, extremely low. It's like 1 in like trillions, I think, chances, maybe more. So that's something that never really occurs. But once you do that, you'll get this type of dashboard, and then there are many different ways that you can onboard cryptocurrency to where you can buy it through various places. One of the solutions that I recommend nowadays is called ZK P2P, which is because it's privacy. It like protects your privacy in many ways, and then you can buy cryptocurrency without needing to go through KYC or know your customer, as you do if you were to sign up for Coinbase or if you were to sign up for Binance or all these things. You can avoid the KYC process, which basically means giving your private information to a centralized company, and instead you could pay via Revolut, Wise, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, a lot of these neobanking apps to receive cryptocurrency. And then to do that, you would just have to copy your address and put it into the UI on that website so that it knows where to send it. It also is a way to offboard cryptocurrency. So if someone who receives cryptocurrency in a certain country who maybe needs to cash out and they have Revolut, Wise, or any of these types of applications, then they can receive it in their account digitally, at least. If they want to receive cash for it, then there needs to be a there needs to be some sort of over-the-counter desk or some sort of exchange where they can do that.
Good points. Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of also brings it together to what we were speaking about in the whole. Wait, let me start my show again.
Were there any maybe questions or thoughts? Was able to check the comments?
There was a question, and I think this connects to kind of the practical considerations Hinal is speaking about, which is the that it's very difficult to turn it into cash because off ramping. How do you off ramp? Um, and
Yeah.
then there's a lot of methods that can be used. It's obviously it's based on these considerations, right? So the location matters a lot. For example, that's Somaliland. What are the potentials, opportunities that are available there? I can speak from a Curacao context, for example, that we used to have a Bitcoin machine, a Bitcoin ATM, and so when people would send money via crypto, they would use the Bitcoin ATM to off ramp. Um, I know that Stellar, for example, has this way of dispersing aid funding too that they're working on. And there's also it depends on the type of crisis that is being faced. So is it conflict? Is it a humanitarian disaster? Um, the difference matters a lot, right? Because like when it's a humanitarian disaster, natural disaster, it's a hurricane, um, or an earthquake. The way that aid agencies mobilize and the way that the local government mobilizes facilitates a level of stability that allows like a lot of these digital tools to be very effective. And when it comes to conflict areas and people are on the run or people are refugees, then we got to deal with other realities. But for example, in South America, I know that Argentina uses USDT a lot. They use a lot of crypto funding. So if you would have to send money to there, it would be very easy because people would accept it. In some countries, they have key people that have like informal crypto trading markets. I remember back in the OG days, here in the Netherlands, there was like a website you could go and they would just showcase who's willing to trade their money for crypto. But you can also think about which other currencies are accepted within the country itself, right? Like, how do you leverage those currencies to be able to get local currencies? Maybe you can't get the local currency, but maybe you can get dollars, right? And maybe there's someone in the diaspora network that has dollars and that has a local currency that wants to trade. So leveraging diaspora networks is also very important to do that. And ultimately, onboarding. How do you make it simple for the people that are on the ground? In our last workshop, we spoke about multi-sig wallets and how NGOs can kind of manage funding together. Maybe that's a way of doing it within countries on the ground too. That there's some key stakeholders that are onboarded, and those become like the middlemen or the nodes needed to be able to disperse funding on the ground. Off ramps by country. I mean, I know we spoke about yesterday. Josh was like the ZK one, the ZK. Um, are you there? The ZK tool for sending money.
ZKP2P you're talking about?
Yes, yeah, ZK P2P.
Yeah. So I mean, in the case of like Somaliland, for example, where like that's probably these new banking apps are probably not available. There's also Havala, for example, is a particular like system in largely Islamic countries, I believe. I believe it's like related to something within Islamic culture, but I'm reading now actually it's not limited to Muslims. It's actually common in India as well. But it's like an informal system of kind of accounting where people on one side of the world may make a trade that is facilitated by someone on the other side of the world without necessarily those two people meeting, but the people in the middle are usually part of the same family or the same organization in some way. So they do the accounting between themselves. So I've also seen this where money exchangers, for example, in Turkey, I've spoken to some of them where they can do trades, all throughout Europe because they had connections and they use Havala as a way to do the accounting across, across time and space, basically. So that could be maybe one option in a place like Somaliland where maybe there is some already existing system of Havala that people are coordinating. So the question is then whether they would be willing to accept cryptocurrency, for example.
Yeah, I think Sarah's point is also very, very important. The networks and the nodes matter a lot. So people on the ground, it's not about that there's just one singular list, because for especially a lot of countries, I would say in the global south, so I would say especially Africa and Latin America, informal systems of funding work a lot, and a lot of the younger people are very tech savvy, and make use of these mechanisms like crypto. So what you would have to look for is not just like an organization specifically that does it. Although I must say, like MoneyGram and Western Union are also kind of experimenting with some crypto tools that can be used. But they have tons of these offices, and there are big remittance networks that all connect back to the home country. So I think it's more of a matter of kind of looking to see and figuring out, who's who, and who's this organization you're working for, who are the people that they're working with on the ground. As Red Cooperative, we're working with a few organizations in different countries. Um, so depending on the country, we could provide like some, maybe advice or some way, a mechanism of kind of looking for that and kind of developing like this pipeline. So that's kind of what we're always here to consult on and help with. But these are important questions, and there is no one fix. It's practical considerations that are different for regions and for countries. So sometimes regional currencies are accepted in other countries. So if you have a way of off ramping to another region's currency, you could do that, especially if you're living in border communities, right? If there's people that are living on border communities, and it's much more easier to off ramp, I don't know, Kenyan shillings, or maybe in Ethiopia, and then send the money through there. You've already kind of erased an extra step. Hopefully that answers some of the questions. If there are no other questions, I want to thank all of you for listening. This webinar is also going to be added online. It's going to be part of our knowledge hub. I'm curious about your work with WEF. Yeah, okay, I can answer that after the recording, because we all know how internet trolls are. But thank you all so very much for participating, and like stay in touch with us. Like this will be shared, you'll receive a guide afterwards. Share it with your friends and your colleagues. We'll be sharing again like some of these webinars that we've already done, and we'll keep you up to date for the next ones that will continue afterwards. This is Bread Cooperative. Solidarity forever. Have a wonderful day.